One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Our next guest has a rather unique career story. She was working at a pub aged 18 and Holly Farmer was spotted by a modelling scout and it turned out to be her lucky day.
Scott Yoz Clark sent this message to Holly.
Holly, 18, 5'10", she does not belong in a pub. And I absolutely love that, Holly, because it's a bit like Dirty Dancing, where it's like, you can't put baby in the corner. Holly does not belong in a pub. You belong on the catwalk. What was that moment like for you when you were scouted by Yoz?
It was crazy. I have to say I wasn't expecting it, to be honest. Like, I was just on my lunch break. I was working at a pub, so... yeah, I was on my lunch break walking, going to Primark and...
You're going to Primark?
Got stopped by yours.
And how did that interaction go?
Well, first question was, how tall are you? So, 5'10".
Very much that.
Yeah, then he gave me his card and asked, explained everything, that he's a model scout, obviously.
Yeah, because generally when I scout, especially when I get close to that person, I tend to look in their eyes, and when you see something there, it's like everything works on the face, and then the eyes gives you a way.
Well, you've spotted a gem in Holly. I mean, you can tell even when you walked in, you are built to be a model.
I did my first fashion week here in London and then went to Paris, and it was really fun.
Wow.
Now it's my full-time job. It's a bit crazy, to be honest,
Wow.
to be able to say that modelling is my full-time job now. Some brands will ask you to be a bit more serious, and then others not
So it depends on the client's request as well. Ellie, give us your best model face. Ready? 3. I wonder if we can come back. 3, 2, 1. Very nice.
High fashion.
Yeah.
But you guys do all, contorted moves, don't you?
Yeah.
Like all this high fashion. Do yours?
I'm just permanently living in model
You actually
model
are,
world.
though. He actually
this
does.
is it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome to the State of the Nation Christmas special. Some of you may have heard me mention Somerset during the course of the year, but the Christmas special is all about Somerset because it's where Christianity in England probably really began. Joseph of Arimathea is said to have brought Christ himself to Glastonbury. Between his birth and the beginning of his ministry, what did Christ do? Well, as any sensible man and God would do, he visited Somerset with Joseph, who may have been related to him, and went to Glastonbury, which started the Christian story, the Christian truth in this country. So the next time you sing Blake's famous hymn and those words come out, you must wonder if they are true. Did those feet in ancient time walk upon England's pastures green? And did those feet in ancient time walk upon England's pastures green? That is the question for Glastonbury. Was Glastonbury the site where Christ was brought by Joseph of Arimathea, immortalised in Blake's works? I'm here to talk to Luke Loader, who has been very generous with his time in explaining some of the stories, legends, possibly even myths about Glastonbury Abbey, which is so strongly associated with the foundation of Christianity and therefore, of course, of Christmas. So Glastonbury is one of the oldest sites associated with Christianity in the United Kingdom. And this tree is fundamentally important. I wonder if you could explain why the Glastonbury thorn is at the heart of all the stories and legends about Glastonbury.
Sure. Well, the thorn tree here is tied up in the legend of Glastonbury's foundation. Many monasteries and holy sites have a foundation legend as part of their legitimacy, how they became a holy special place. And the holy thorn and the story of it is one of Glastonbury's. It's tied up in the story of a man called Joseph of Arimathea, a biblical figure. Some say, later authors say, possibly even the great uncle of Mary, or even related to Christ himself. The story goes that he came to Glastonbury, in this case after the crucifixion. He may be coming to escape persecution in the Holy Land. He arrives in the southwest, up through the Bristol Channel on a trading vessel, sails as far inland as he can, which at the time would have brought him right up to the edge of Glastonbury. He gets off of his boat at the bottom of a hill called Weariall Hill, climbs to the top of the hill, and when he gets to the top he is rather tired. At this point Joseph is a very elderly man, so he has with him what you might expect, a walking stick, a staff. Gets to the top of the hill, thrusts his staff in the ground to rest, and while he sits and rests, this staff miraculously grows branches, grows roots, and turns into a tree, the holy thorn. This was seen as a miracle, and the idea is that some of the local population of the island here saw this happen, and they asked Joseph, what's caused this? What's made your stick turn into a tree? Joseph tells them, well, God has made it happen. Of course, these local people never heard of the idea of God before, so he's meant to convert them to Christianity, and they are then meant to help him construct the first church in all of Christendom on the site here.
And hundreds of years before St Augustine gets to Canterbury and founds the English church there.
Absolutely.
And this tree comes into flower at Christmas and at Easter, so it celebrates the great Christian festivals.
Absolutely, it does. So yes, it flowers twice during those very important times. And there are a number of these trees around Glastonbury, all meant to be descendants of that original tree that grew from Joseph's staff. And it's been an important symbol of Christianity for hundreds of years.
Because it's not a common tree, you don't find it all over the country or all over the world.
No, it is a type of hawthorn tree, but yes, it is rather unique to the local area here. So adds a bit of magic to the story.
And St Joseph is commemorated here. There's a chapel. Shall we go
There is a chapel,
to the chapel of St Joseph and
Yes,
have a look? And St Joseph was known to be a trader, St Joseph of Arimathea.
Yep.
He was wealthy, that's why he could pay for the tomb of Christ.
Absolutely, yep.
And as you pointed out, all of this area was surrounded by water, so it would have been relatively straightforward to come.
Absolutely, yeah. Water were the international highways of the ancient world. So,
Indeed.
Yeah.
And it's the monks who dredge it eventually, isn't it?
Absolutely, especially on the land of the monastery here. A lot of land out to the west of Glastonbury is tidal floodplain and marshes, rather unusual, and it's really in the Anglo-Saxon period we see big concerted efforts for drainage to, of course, make that land usable and farmable.
So we're coming into what was the Lady Chapel, part of the oldest bit of the church, and then quite late on they decide to have a chapel commemorating St Joseph of Arimathea. How did that come about? What was the motivation behind it?
So absolutely, so being in the Lady Chapel now then, first of all, it is the oldest part of the Abbey site surviving. It dates back to about the year 1186, it's about 800 years old. And this chapel was built after a great fire that destroyed much of the Anglo-Saxon and Norman monastery. And it's said that at the time of the Anglo-Saxon Norman monastery, the oldest church was on this site here. And that's the church that goes back to possibly the time of Joseph of Arimathea, often called in Glastonbury records the Vetusta Ecclesia, the ancient church. So when they did their rebuild, they thought building their first part of their new monastery on this site was very symbolic and important.
And that would have drawn in pilgrims, and that's one of the things about these great abbeys, isn't it? They need something that encourages people to come. So Canterbury had Thomas Becket, Glastonbury had King Arthur and Joseph of Arimathea, and indeed St Patrick, to encourage people to come and actually to help support the work of the abbey.
Absolutely, yeah. They're cementing their claim to these saints by building these chapels and these buildings. And as far as we can tell, the monks genuinely believed this. They had the site of the oldest church on the site here, and you can see the chapel down below us right now at the end, the altar. And what's lovely about the St. Joseph Chapel is even though we're in a ruined chapel, you can see the altar down there, it's still a functioning chapel that's still used and people still occasionally hold services here.
In a moment, we'll be back at Glastonbury Abbey. Is that where St. Patrick was? Is it where St. Dunstan grabbed the devil by the nose? In a moment, I'll be telling you more.
Once in royal David's city stood a lonely cattle shed, where a mother laid her baby in a manger for his bed. Mary was that mother, but Jesus Christ, her little child. He came down to earth from heaven, who is Lord and Lord of all, and his shelter was a stable, and his cradle was a stone. With the poor and mean and lowly, lived on earth a Saviour holy. For he is our childhood's pattern, day by day, like us he grew. He was little, weak and helpless, tears and sorrows like us he knew. And he feels for all our sadness, and he shares in all our gladness. And our eyes and us shall see him through his own redeeming love. Oh, that child so dear and gentle is our Lord in heaven above, and he leads his children on to the place when he is gone.
I'm Martin Daubney. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
What about train Wi-Fi? It's so funny the Times did this story because I was on the train yesterday trying to do some work and connecting to the Wi-Fi, and it happens all the time. It just doesn't work. It's pathetic. And then I opened the Times and they've done a massive investigation. Loads of different rail routes from north to south.
Was that the James Bond thing, right?
Yes. Yeah. What's
well, that passenger got through, or almost got through, one episode one James Bond movie in 8 hours.
But you know, it's interesting. We call it train Wi-Fi, but it isn't. It's just really a SIM card on a train, really. So if your own phone's not going to get signal, why would we assume that the train's going to have signal? It just doesn't work like that. Unless you're in Japan or South Korea, whose infrastructure is infinitely better than ours, you're just not going to get signal. You have to download those films way before you get on
There is technology that can help with that. You know, there really is. If they found ways to put it underground, they can get it on ground and get you going. I definitely think, you know, with the price that we're paying for these tickets, they can get the Wi-Fi going. There is technology.
That's why it's so frustrating, isn't
Call
it?
Elon, get a Starlink, let's go.
If you're a passenger paying hundreds of pounds for a season ticket or whatever you call it, and you know, commute to work every single day, and you're paying all this money, and you can't.
It's so expensive. You'd expect Wi-Fi at the basic. Yeah, exactly.
But it happens with phone signal as well. I'll be walking down London in Park Lane or somewhere else, or down on the south coast. I just don't have phone signal, and I think to myself, what on earth is going on?
Doesn't it feel like 5G's made it worse, though?
Yeah.
Because I feel like 4G, that didn't happen so much, but 5G just feels like...
Yeah, and then I always get this little E in the top corner of my phone, and I don't get any signal. I think it's got worse over the past couple of years. Yeah, especially with 5G. I agree with that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. I'm still Jacob Rees-Mogg, and I've had a very special mail mog from somebody called Patrick, who says, obviously Christ was at Glastonbury. That's what inspired me to go to Ireland to convert the Irish and get rid of the snakes. But will you tell us more about the famous people at Glastonbury, such as King Arthur? And so now let's return to Glastonbury Abbey to talk about the once and future king.
In 1191, the monks are meant to discover King Arthur within the graveyard, the south graveyard of the monastery. There are two bodies in the tomb, one man and one woman, with the bodies as a cross, with the words inscribed upon it in Latin, "Here lies King Arthur upon the island of Avalon." So the monks, of course, are delighted to have found this famous king, and they assume with him the Lady Guinevere.
Yes.
The bones are placed in storage, the word is spread, we have found King Arthur, and of course this word travels like wildfire through the courts of England and Europe, because we're at the height of the Romantic period in French and English courtly history. Arthur has been rewritten by authors such as Chrétien de Troyes and Was, a French monk, from being a tribal war leader or chief, and he's turned into a chivalric hero, and then from that point onwards he's cemented as being this knightly king. And what Glastonbury does is kind of market this a little bit. There is a gap between them being discovered and the building of this great church we're inside now. But when the church is finished, and at least the choir is finished, in the year 1271, there is a ceremony which is attended by King Edward I and his wife, Queen Eleanor of Castile, and they help the monks reinter these bones inside a beautiful shrine tomb within the choir. And this became the famous shrine site of Arthur at Glastonbury that people wanted to come and see. Of course, later kings even came to see. King Edward III came to see these bones, and in the account of his visit, there's a lovely story that the monks removed from the tomb for his viewing delight, I guess, the skull and kneecaps of Arthur and Guinevere.
And Edward III sets up the Order of the Garter, and they're looking back to the Arthurian legends, aren't they? So it's a tremendously important part of the history of English kingship. But it's also a good money earner for Glastonbury because people come. So you have James Vanther, you have Arthur, and therefore you draw in the pilgrims, and that pays for these amazing buildings.
It does. Helps everybody.
Helps everybody. But they believed it, and that's, I think, important to remember.
Yeah.
That they're not making it all up for the revenue.
No.
They genuinely believe it, and we may now look at it with a 21st century scepticism, but they did it as a pious and genuine act.
Absolutely, yeah. It's in the way you said it, and so they genuinely believed it, but also within that frame, the concrete truth to that is almost secondary to the intent, and the medieval mind is a lot more accepting of that than we can be today.
And here the high altar, which would have been obviously where Mass was said, the high point of any Catholic ceremony. And they carried on building almost right up until the dissolution of the monastery. They had no idea what was about to hit them.
No, indeed. So the last part of the abbey built was actually just ahead of us, the chapel of King Edgar, or Edgar the Peaceful, and that was built in 1536, only 3 years before the abbey's demise and closure in 1539. Very much just because the king took control of the church there didn't necessarily mean the monastic life had to end, at least that's what they thought anyway.
And King Edgar, linked with Dunstan, crowned in Bath Abbey in a coronation service that is recognised today. That amazing little difference between Edgar's coronation and Charles III's.
Absolutely, yeah. So yeah, Dunstan, of course, born in Boltonspur, nearby local saint, abbot of Glastonbury, later became Archbishop of Canterbury, and yes, he is credited as being the man who wrote the original, or the first coronation ceremony as we would recognise it today. A lot of claims to fame for Glastonbury.
Well, and taking the devil by the nose with fire tongs is one of Dunstan's great claims to fame.
Yes, the devil tempted him multiple times.
It's Christmas Day. We're about to have Mass. What would be happening? What would the ceremonies be like? And how would the monks commemorate Christmas?
So very much, in some ways, there would have been greater attention to observance at that time. Extra services put on within the church and extra observances. In some ways, although they're observing the offices of Christmas and the festival of Christmas, the monastic life would have ran through relatively unchanged, within the calendar of the time. Of course, seasonality brings differences, and there might have been some decoration within the church. The idea of bringing foliage into the church to decorate was a practice that did happen. And there would have been additional services put on for the people of the town as well at times. They wouldn't have been able to get to the lofty area of the choir, obviously, and past the rood screen, but they might have been invited in to celebrate within the church.
And would they have received alms? Would the monastery have been supporting the poor of Glastonbury? Because that was one of the things that monasteries were certainly meant to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So Glastonbury, very much as any other monastery, would have been supporting, especially at Christmas, would have been supporting people, clothing, feeding them. They had quite a good provision for alms at Glastonbury because the almoner, the monk in charge of the alms, to help fund his charitable activities, was given the manor of the village of Mere nearby, and he ran that manor for profit, and those profits were used to accommodate the charitable works of the abbey.
And then it all went. It is quite extraordinary, and the tragedy is the loss of the amazing, beautiful buildings, of which now some really very imposing remains are still standing.
It's food for the imagination.
It is, isn't it? Yes, yes. It would be lovely to be able to walk through it as it was.
It would,
yes,
yeah, it would. So we've got sturgeon being cooked in this kitchen, we've got all sorts of game animals, and so really these feasts, as much as they were a celebration, they were a spectacle as well.
And a very well organised kitchen. So here we are by the spit, so you've got the meat roasting, but you've also got somewhere for boiling pans with a drain, you've got a place for washing up, and you've got a bakery kitchen. So in one place, they've really organised themselves in the sort of Henry Ford model of productivity.
They absolutely have, yeah. And so it's very efficient, very well organised. The staff knew what they were doing, and of course they're all overseen by a head chef. And usually the calibre of these head chefs were quite important. And our head chef actually stood on top of a gantry within the kitchen where he could almost oversee the work happening below him like a conductor at an orchestra. We've represented this gantry today by a modern structure in the centre of the kitchen.
It's very clever. Assumes the abbot must have got quite fat with all this luxury food.
One does think.
The sort of friar tuck.
Yeah, absolutely. That and the amount of beer they would have drank, yes.
Oh, yes, of course, because they never drink water, do they?
No. Well, they had access to clean spring water here, and they certainly would have drank water, but normally a ration for a monk at Glastonbury was a pint of red wine to be watered down as needed, and up to a gallon, 8 pints of ale a day.
It's not bad, is
Not
it?
bad
No,
for
and
a
this is in the rule of St Benedict, who
This is in
provides
the
for,
rule.
I think it's
Yeah.
a hemina
Yes, I
of
think
wine.
so.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So of course, different monasteries ended up interpreting that in different
In
ways.
different ways, but it was a pint here. So, and did those feet in ancient time walk upon England's pastures green? I wonder how many people, when they sing Jerusalem, realise that it is suggesting that Christ actually came to Glastonbury, probably with Joseph of Arimathea.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, isn't it? And whether people realise that or not. It's certainly part of what we call the Glastonbury tradition. Certainly the story becomes popular with the onset of Joseph of Arimathea's narrative in the latter part of the Abbey's history. And I believe in the post-medieval period, very much the story of Christ coming with Joseph comes to the fore. And it's very much celebrated, especially in the 17th century. And that's when there's an explosion of interest in the story of Joseph of Arimathea, the narratives of potentially Christ coming to Glastonbury with him in those lost years of Christ happens, and perhaps then the first church at Glastonbury, that Vetusta Ecclesia, the ancient church, was built by the hands of Christ himself.
And the ancient saying, as Christ was at Priddy, which is not very far from here. So clearly he did a tour of Somerset.
He did indeed, yeah.
Luke, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. Extremely interesting. Thank you very much. Thank you. And now you know, those feet in ancient time did walk upon Somerset's pastures green, not just England's. But let's talk more about the meaning of Christianity and the meaning of Christmas with a local parish priest, Father Tony Pazayakalam.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Very little sign of anything white this Christmas. It's going to be mild, it's going to be mostly cloudy, but some brighter spells are likely in places by Christmas Day afternoon. We've got this Atlantic airflow at the moment. A warm front's gone through, left a legacy of cloudy skies across the UK. That cloud low, sitting on the hills of northern and western parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland, England and Wales. Some drizzle here and there, but mostly the persistent rain now is confined to the far northwest of Scotland, where it's going to be a windy start to Christmas. And these are the temperatures first thing Christmas Day, 9 to 12 Celsius. So no cold expected, but there will be some cloud breaks, and a brighter day is likely across parts of England and Wales, particularly East Wales into the Midlands, southern England, the cloud breaking to give some sunny spells at times. Thicker cloud expected further north across Northern Ireland, Northern England, much of Scotland, although northeast Scotland once again likely to see the cloud break up as it makes its way over the hills and mountains. And that's why northeastern parts of the UK will be warmest on Christmas Day, similar to Christmas Eve, but a degree or so less mild. And actually for the southern half of the UK, with some decent cloud breaks developing by the afternoon, it's not looking too bad if you're planning a Christmas Day walk. Light winds, feeling pleasant enough, 11 to 13 Celsius, possible 14 to the northeast of Scotland, northeast England. And then into Boxing Day, well, we've got further rain across much of northern and western Scotland, pushing into Northern Ireland, southern Scotland through the course of the day. To the south of that, a lot of cloud remains, but still some cloud breaks to the east and brightening up in the far north of Scotland later on. A similar idea on Friday. Into the weekend, it turns a little colder, but also a little brighter.
It's Patrick Christie's tonight, and here
We do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the State of the Nation Christmas special. We've talked about the origins of Christianity, but what does it mean in the modern world? How should it affect our daily lives? And who better to discuss that with than local parish priest, the parish priest at Wells, Father Tony Paziyakalam, who kindly came to join me at home in Somerset to talk about the truth of Christmas. Father, thank you very much for coming to talk about the importance of Christmas. Why, in a modern secular age, should people think about the origins of Christmas?
Thank you, Sir Jacob, for inviting me. I am very glad to speak whatever I can or I can share from the faith point as a priest Catholic Church. The Christmas always reminds us of God's love for the world. God revealed himself born as a baby in the manger. But from the very beginning of Christianity, there has been some disputes or heresies coming up. But all the time, people moved by the Spirit of God has come in help of defending that born child in the manger is Christ Jesus, the man as well as the God. And I would invite any of my hearers or maybe viewers today or of the teenagers. Is a teenager boy in 300 AD, Athanasius of Alexandria. He really, in his teenagers, he framed that God dilemma point. God was in dilemma, therefore God had to make a point of coming down to redress whatever had gone in the creation. And therefore, coming to the humanity, it is God is needed to reclaim them. And that happens there.
Because something had gone wrong in creation, that man had fallen, man had sinned, and Christ is then coming into the world to put things right.
Of course, that's the point of incarnation. God coming down, that I can be lifted up. From my peripheries, where I cannot myself come up, the Lord will come down and the Lord will visit you is a constant prophecies in the Old Testament. Especially Isaiah chapter 7 and chapter 9. The word of God is speaking of the Lord himself will give you a sign.
And in coming to worship him, the role of Our Lady is tremendously important. Catholics pay a lot of attention to the Blessed Virgin, who protects and looks after this vulnerable baby, but also agreed to it in the first place of her own free will.
I know that there could be many viewers who are watching us, and speaking of Our Lady is a very important person in the scriptures. Especially at the point of incarnation, the Word became flesh. Unless and until we refer to Mary, that God's revelation does not touch the ground. One of my homilies, which I mostly use, I quote Nadia Bowles, a Presbyterian pastor. She speaks about, I don't know her personally, but I have read of her, and she speaks about on account of two things she respects Mary. One, among the many women, the angel could have gone to any other woman on the earth. The possibility of the angel is so immense, not like me or you. You came to me today or I come to you today. We have a limited choices. But for an angel, among the hundreds, thousands, millions, the angel came to Mary is unique. On account of that unique selection, she needs a reverence, veneration. And on the other hand, Mary, like any other woman, was a woman who could have the free will of saying yes or no. And it was not an ordinary message for Mary to say yes at the outset of it. But she had to think, reflect, or come back. But she doesn't do anything. She just believes and says yes to the will of God, not knowing the whole of the drama. There lies the truth of Mary, the humility of Mary, and the divine plan of choosing Mary.
Who says yes and has this great and immediate faith, as others have who we read about around the time of Christmas. So the shepherds who see the angels, the wise men, and of course a little bit later St. Simeon, they immediately see or hear of Christ and come to faith, and that is a very great blessing.
Yeah, the Spirit of God, I think a revelation is a point of working of the Spirit. Outer revelation as well as the inner movement. I think that is where the revelation gets accomplished. That's why these innocent, simple people, they could have enjoyed a sleep, the shepherds, but they go out seeing the born child. I think that is a spirit working within them, and the revelation gets as a message into them.
And does it trouble you that the modern Christmas doesn't necessarily focus on the incarnation? Indeed, it seems to focus on eating, drinking, and making merry. Or do you think that anything that reminds people of Christmas, of the birth of Christ, is actually helpful and in a very secular world reminds people of this very important truth?
I think it is how much we affirm about it, because the star, unless we go back and visit the importance of the star of Jesus, we take it as a glittering design or a decoration. Or maybe the candy cane, candy crook. I bought one for you if you like one, okay? I have a candy cane for you because I thought, I was reading about it. Candy cane for you.
Thank you, Father.
That will be something good for you.
That's very kind.
This candy cane, have you any idea how did it come? If you don't speak, we forget it. That's why. Originally, it came in 1675. A choir master in the Cologne Cathedral wanted to keep the children quiet, so he designed it. But he did not want to give them a chocolate. He wanted some theology behind it. Mm-hmm. And therefore, initially began it, then it developed. It is the shepherd's crook.
Right, yes, yes.
So the shepherds visited Jesus is the first meaning of it. Then to go on from there, Jesus is a good shepherd. Psalm 23 speaks of he protects, he provides, and he preserves you. That is a shepherd's duty. And he guides and he leads all those. So the hook is used for guiding the sheep.
Yes.
Okay. Third one, keep it upside down. That speaks for Jesus Christ. J.
Of course. Yes, yes.
And again, the stripes on it, the red and the white. The red stands for the martyrdom or the sacrifice of Jesus. And the white stands for the purity. Not finished. It is very solid. I don't think children will enjoy eating it other than holding it very much, okay? It's a very solid thing. It speaks of. Then I was just referring the Bible. When Moses asked God, what is your name? God just pronounces 3 vocabularies in Hebrew. Rakuma, Hineni, Hesed. Rakuma, I don't want to explain, wombish, motherly. And Hineni, gracious. And then Hesed. So this is Hesed is tight, unchanging. And therefore, this the structure of this chocolate stands for the unchanging love of God. So come to the manger and face God with his unchanging, steadfast face.
And that's a remarkable thing, because however you're coming to faith, whether you are seeing it immediately as the shepherds did, or whether you're a naughty choir boy who is helped to it by a candy cane, the route is open to everybody.
The door is open all the time. That's why the wise men, we don't know where did they come from. Who are they? We don't know. But we have the story. Their search ended in worship. So it can be anybody who coming to Jesus, the door is wide open. God doesn't look for a history where how you come from, how have you come from. But it is all important. Come to him, know him, that there is all love of God waiting for you in the manger.
Father, thank you very much. Can I ask you, please, for a blessing for me and for the viewers?
God our Father, thank you for this day, and we worship and glorify your name. Thank you for the gift of Jesus born in the manger. Help us to come and experience thy love. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you, Father. Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much to Father Tony. Next, we'll be looking a bit at the more commercial side of Christmas, visiting a local farm shop, and one of your favourite commentators, Tessa Dunlop, will be joining me.
I hope it doesn't rain.
Don't worry about it.
It'll spoil our holiday.
Relax, we're totally covered.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
No snow for the UK this Christmas, but there is across other parts of Europe, particularly across the southeast. Generally fine and sunny for the Canaries on Christmas Day, and across Madeira as well. That will be quite windy here. Plenty of winter sunshine on offer across Iberia, but it will be turning cooler here with the winds coming down from the north. Heavy rain across the Balkans and Italy on Christmas Eve, clearing, but some snow flurries following and some heavy downpours across Greece and Turkey. Sunny skies in Barcelona, but not very warm.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, let's speak now to Sales Director at Savills for Quinta Properties, Raquel Santos, who is live for us in Portugal. Raquel, good to see you this morning. Why are all these celebrities flocking to Portugal all of a sudden?
Yeah, I guess it's just because of basically the great lifestyle that we have, security, you know. Portugal has kind of been a hidden, tucked away gem for quite a while that people didn't realize existed. And with the international flights that have, with the American flights coming in, it's kind of been put back on the map as a country that's worth visiting and worth investing in due to the secure investments that we offer in real estate.
Raquel, is it anything to do with tax rates? Because I think capital gains tax is, I think if it's over a certain amount, you pay half of your rate, which is 28%. Capital gains on shares and cryptocurrencies is 0. Is it anything to do with that? Because over here in the UK, big storm at the moment about millionaires apparently leaving in exodus because of the mooted increases in taxes in just a few weeks.
Yes, so obviously the alterations that are happening with the UK in terms of the tax that's being implemented on the capital gains, as you mentioned, we've definitely noticed has become a big drive, mostly on the vendor side as well, who are looking to sell because they don't want to be hit, with these higher capital gains, which is close to coming into effect.
Raquel, have you noticed then millionaires, high net worth people from the UK getting in touch with you looking to relocate?
Definitely. It's for multiple reasons, obviously, the changes that are due to come into place, obviously, and Portugal just seems to be a safe option always when things do kind of change. People opt to come into Portugal because we're quite steady, we're quite stable.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back. Farming is at the heart of any community, and shepherds were the first people to go and visit our Lord and Saviour. So now let's go to the heart of the community, visit a farm shop, and see some of the important commercial activity that goes on around Christmas.
Amazing Somerset sunshine.
It's a lovely Somerset sunny day again, as always, yes. Any rumours to the contrary are mistaken. So here we are.
It's like Aladdin's cave in here,
It's amazing,
Jacob.
isn't it? I mean, it is a huge place.
Do you know what I'm getting?
Christmas
A basket.
cake. You're getting a basket?
It's absolutely perfect. This is, I think, a stocking filler. Fantastic. That'll do. Mother-in-law.
You get all your Christmas shopping done.
Yeah.
But this is the thing about how Christmas has changed, that it's moved from being the 12 days of Christmas that the medieval Christmas was up until the Tudor times, to being Advent is when Christmas is, all the buying, and the commercial side of it is so important for businesses.
Yeah, and I'm surprised. You're almost saying that with a glint in your eye, and yet I take you as quite a religious man. And even when I grew up as a child, my mother was apoplectic when all the decorations she felt went up far too early at the beginning of December, and she thought that the decorations shouldn't go up until that first day of the 12 days of Christmas.
I mean, I think your mother's right, but that we've lost that battle. That some of the shops start having Christmas items in by the beginning of autumn, and now November has become the start of Christmas. But if you're running a farm shop, that's when you're making your business. And so for the rural economy, having Christmas and economic activity has become very important.
So in other words, you will place market forces on the altar of Christ Mass?
No, because we discussed this with Father Tony earlier in the programme, and what he was saying was so interesting is that because it's around Christmas, it reminds the secular world that there is something religious as well. It's not purely commercial, it's building up to this great feast of the birth of Christ.
Wasn't it C.S. Lewis that said Christmas was three things? One was a commercial racket, the other was a merry holiday, and the final one, or maybe the first one, a religious festival.
I didn't know that, but it makes absolute sense. Well, let's go and say hello to Colston Gay, who set up this farm shop, local farm, extremely innovative, successful businessman, and has shown the way of the future of farming.
Yeah, fascinating.
Colston, hello, how are you?
Lovely to meet you, Jacob.
Very good to see my former landlord. Christmas is a crucial time of year for your business, one of the busiest times.
For any retail shop like this, it's really crucial to pick up new customers and maintain the old ones, and hopefully you can pick up a percentage which will support you for the next year going through.
And you're a proper farm shop. All the meat behind us is from your own animals.
Yes, we supply as much as we can. The beef, the lamb and the pork comes off the farm. We do have local suppliers for poultry, which is duck, turkey and chicken, but we try to do as much as we can as homegrown.
And selling lots of turkey at the moment?
Yes, lots of turkey, but we're still very keen on the beef and the lamb and the pork. A bit quieter on the lamb just for a week or two, and then we're back into lamb in January in big numbers.
And of course your own lamb, and even your own milk, that you've got a big milk business as well.
Yes, that has developed, and that's been very successful. We're now buying off 12 local farms, and we're selling it across the southwest and even up to London.
And your family have been farming here forever, and you've developed the business. How far back do you go?
Well, there's a rumour that we could go back as far as the Black Prince, but definitely 1525.
You beat us, that the Rees-Moggs or the Moggs have been in northeast Somerset since 1618. They we moved from Shepton Montague before then. So you're even more established than we are.
I don't want them really posh. I'm not Jacob's level of wealth. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm just regular.
For me, personally, you've got to get for a ribeye.
And then what's between rump and fillet?
They're about sort of on par on price.
How much is a sirloin steak? I don't trust these farm shops. You know, you come out and they blow your mind. Sometimes they're expensive. £11, blooming hell. Okay, I'll take two. Got to support the farmers. Look at these chutneys. I love a chutney. Is this spicy, this one? I'm just going to look at your pies. Do you know, I can't resist buying one of those pork pies as well. Could I have a pork pie? My absolute favourite thing, can you believe it? Like, talk about Victoriana. 3 sugar mice. Right.
Excellent. Well, you've done your Christmas shopping.
That was amazing. It was like a sort of Christmas emporium.
And they've got the Christmas trees all ready to go.
Oh, have you got yours yet,
stage.
Jacob?
Well, Helena's got that in hand. We always get it from the same place. Because we're going to have a lot of fires over Christmas.
£7 a bag or something.
Right.
It was way cheaper than in London. Don't tell anyone.
No, I won't. Last year we spoke about a 19th century Christmas. This year we've come up to date with Christmas starting so much earlier, and we even saw some Christmas trees for sale. But there's something from the 19th century that we've really bought into.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of myths around the Christmas tree, and I know as a staunch supporter of England and everything English, it probably breaks your little heart, doesn't it, that they really are originally from Germany. Whichever way you look at it, this is a German tradition we imported, and it's very erroneous to presume that Albert, Victoria's meddling spouse, was the first man to introduce the tree. Quite wrong.
And who was it? It was Queen Charlotte, wasn't
Indeed
it? It was
was.
George III's wife.
Yes, who's really had something of a second or third coming with wonderful Bridgerton and the sort of eye candy era, that Georgian era, reminding us of how important she was. She was intelligent, she was vivacious, she was artistic, and of course, she had German attendants, and those German attendants had their own Christmas trees.
And the Germans worshipped trees, of course, because St. Boniface was martyred for chopping down a sacred tree when he was taking Christianity to Germany. So it harks back to pagan German habits.
Yeah, you're quite right. A lot of aspects, actually, of our present festive period have pagan roots. But what's interesting about that idea of a German Christmas tree, I think it also speaks to the great dark forests of Germany and the otherworldly stories, and there's all sorts of ways in which it's wrapped into a Germanic tradition. It's not actually that old, though, the idea of bringing a Christmas tree into the house. And yet I think to an extent Germans fiddle the truth a bit, don't we all, when it comes to our traditions? Because there's pictures of Luther with a Christmas tree. Now, when were those pictures painted? Does it really date back to Lutheran times, or actually is it something reintroduced as an idea in the 18th, 19th century? There is suggestion that it was the early 18th century where you start seeing the commercialisation of the Christmas tree, the selling of them and the introduction of them in the homes. Before that, forestry laws meant you couldn't actually uproot trees willy-nilly and do what you wanted with them. But it was Charlotte who first introduced them to Britain in that context, but it didn't become popular in Britain until Albert did it and was pictured doing it.
Which is why he gets the credit for it.
Yes.
And then it spreads across the country, and now every house pretty much will have a Christmas tree.
Yeah, it was the Illustrated London News, big boom time for the pictorial press. There was a picture of Victoria and Albert and their children. They had even more children than you, Jacob, believe it or not. 9.
Well, we've only got 6. We're mere beginners.
Short shrift, get cracking. They were pictured, this engraving of them around the tree. The other key difference by the time you're in the mid-century, I think it was 1848 when this edition was published, is that the tree is now a fir tree. When Charlotte introduces it, it's a yew tree. So now you've got that idea of this big bushy fir tree. And Victoria loves all these introductions, actually, and these Christmassy traditions and tricks. For the first time ever, Albert pushes her in a sledge, and she giggles.
But the 12 days of Christmas have faded into the background. Nobody is any longer celebrating Christmas up until the Feast of Epiphany.
Yeah, and there's something quite sad about that. You know, Queen Elizabeth I commissioned Shakespeare to write The Twelfth Night, this great play, one of the sort of set pieces of that period, and you'd have masques led by royalty, especially on the 12th night, the sort of climax. Whereas I think by that time we're all rather exhausted. The needles have long since fallen off the tree we bought in November, you know, and we're sort of sweeping up the detritus and contemplating our empty bank accounts. So we have quite a different relationship with the period after Christmas, although of course there is also that commercial stab that are the Boxing Day sales.
And in Scotland, it's more New Year's Day that is celebrated rather than Christmas Day. Part of the Calvinistic approach of the Scottish Church post the Reformation.
Yes, that's so interesting you should mention that, Jacob. When I grew up, I had this quite religious Anglican mother who was all about Christmas. We'd stir in the sixpences and we'd be getting ready in early December with all those quite revolting sort of cakes and mince pies. And my father would go, who was a Scot, we lived in Scotland, bloody English nonsense, that's ridiculous. And he would go and feed the beasts at New Year, the cattle at New Year, to give his men time off at New Year, because that was the primary celebration, Hogmanay. And they would work Christmas. And he would take time off to be with his English wife at Christmas. The reason being Christmas isn't such, or wasn't such a big festival in Scotland. That changes. Do you know when Christmas Day becomes a holiday in Scotland?
I don't.
Have a guess.
But in England, it's not strictly a bank holiday. It's a common law holiday that predates the Bank Holidays Act, along with Good Friday. So some of the religious festivals are such ancient holidays that they aren't particularly covered by the law.
But so that's interesting, isn't it, that it's a holiday in England for time immemorial, effectively. In Scotland, it doesn't become a holiday until 1958. And Boxing Day isn't a holiday in Scotland until 1974. So this is really quite a recent introduction. And what's fascinating is the way in which the commercial landscape and the holiday landscape has allowed it to become a pan-British celebration, including, of course, immigrants. My Muslim friends, my Jewish friends, everyone piles into Christmas because there's something in it for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. It's become the national holiday and celebration. Yeah. And Christians find that it slightly displaces Easter, which theologically is much more important.
Yes, it is. But arguably, of course, we still have our two bank holidays bookending the Easter weekend. And again, that affords choice, doesn't it? I think one of the problems is that Christmas is this traditional period when we look back. That's the ghost of Christmas past there. What's it doing? A red hot poker, Jacob. You've actually got sort of a Cromwellian style equipment in this
absolutely
place.
Right. And we've got the fire tongs, because you remember St Dunstan, and we were at Glastonbury Abbey, took the devil by the nose with fire tongs.
Yes.
It's always important to remember that when you
so long as you don't preheat them.
In case the devil appears.
Terrifying. Anyway, I was just going to say that I think, because we have these very set piece ideas of Christmas, because that's what it is. It's about the passage of time, isn't it? Allowing us to look back, think about our childhood, reflect, take time out. And therefore, when it starts being done differently, when suddenly I'm like, oh, what, Black Friday? That offends me, because it wasn't what I grew up with.
I don't mind the commercialism of Christmas, because it reminds people on Christmas Day, today a Saviour has been born to us. He is Christ the Lord. And that anything that reminds people of our Christian roots, of the importance of Christianity in our lives, seems to me a good thing. And if that's people giving presents and buying Christmas trees, I'm not against it.
Well, you see, Jacob, that's one way of interpreting it. I would have argued you don't mind the commercialisation because you're a Tory and it's all about market forces.
Ho, 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 and Merry Christmas, one and all.
Indeed. Before I go, I bought something for a Christmas tree.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, we make sure that has pride of place. You are very kind.
It was hand-selected, especially with the Rees-Moggs in mind.
Thank you very much. Now you know that it's really Somerset that began Christmas because of Christ's visit to Glastonbury. You know the meaning of it, thanks to Father Tony. But don't feel guilty. Now you've listened to State of the Nation about having that next glass of champagne. Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Very little sign of anything white this Christmas. It's going to be mild, it's going to be mostly cloudy, but some brighter spells are likely in places by Christmas Day afternoon. We've got this Atlantic airflow at the moment. A warm front's gone through, left a legacy of cloudy skies across the UK. That cloud low, sitting on the hills of northern and western parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland, England and Wales. Some drizzle here and there, but mostly the persistent rain now is confined to the far northwest of Scotland, where it's going to be a windy start to Christmas. And these are the temperatures first thing Christmas Day, 9 to 12 Celsius. So No cold expected, but there will be some cloud breaks and a brighter day is likely across parts of England and Wales, particularly East Wales into the Midlands, southern England, the cloud breaking to give some sunny spells at times. Thicker cloud expected further north across Northern Ireland, Northern England, much of Scotland, although North East Scotland once again likely to see the cloud break up as it makes its way over the hills and mountains. And that's why northeastern parts of the UK will be warmest on Christmas Day, similar to Christmas Eve, but a degree or so less mild. And actually for the southern half of the UK, with some decent cloud breaks developing by the afternoon, it's not looking too bad if you're planning a Christmas Day walk. Light winds, feeling pleasant enough, 11 to 13 Celsius, possible 14 to the northeast of Scotland, northeast England. And then into Boxing Day, well, we've got further rain across much of northern and western Scotland, pushing into Northern Ireland, southern Scotland through the course of the day. To the south of that, a lot of cloud remains, but still some cloud breaks to the east and brightening up in the far north of Scotland later on. A similar idea on Friday. Into the weekend, it turns a little colder, but also a little brighter.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to...
Imagine getting a call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
Oh my God.
That's a big surprise.
Oh my God. This is amazing.
I'm in shock.
I'd say don't hesitate, do it.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Locals in Abingdon in Oxfordshire have signed a petition to keep the name of their local pub, and it's called The Midget. Now, this comes after a university lecturer led an 11-month campaign to change the name of the pub, and the owners, Green King, have caved in. But locals are fighting back, and GB News spoke to one resident, Leanne Thompson, for her thoughts earlier today.
I'm not feeling great about it, to be honest. You know, it's a pub that's been here for a very long time. It's called The Midget after a MG car, and they're changing it to the Roaring Range Rock, which a lot of people are not happy about. We know why they're changing it, but a lady apparently came in who was very upset at the offensive term for the name midget. But nobody here sees it as an offensive term. You don't see the midget and feel any kind of offence towards that. It's named after a car. If she was to actually come, she might actually know more about it, but apparently she's not even been into the pub. She's just heard about it and broadcasted on social media that she wanted the name changed because it's offensive, which as locals don't feel that way. It's the midget. It will always be the midget. And if you look, it's even still on Midget Close. So I don't know if they're going to change it to the Roaring Range Rock Close.
Do you know, you should walk into the Midget now and go, do you serve shorts? And just keep going on the joke. It's named after a car, the MG Midget, that was manufactured in the town of Abingdon for a while. The car was released in 1961. The boozer was built in 1974, giving huge pride to the area. It wasn't named after midgets, you know, the Snow White and the 7 vertically challenged individuals variety. It's named after a car.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, it's 9 p.m. I'm Josh Howie. Tonight, Britain is bracing itself for a record-breaking Christmas Day as hundreds of illegal immigrants are expected to arrive on dinghies from France. Labour promised to smash the gangs, but the evil people smugglers never stop, not even at Christmas. The King will deliver his most personal Christmas message yet from a former hospital chapel. And according to new research, a record number of young people will be spending Christmas alone. If you're watching and alone this Christmas, it's an honour to keep you company. All of that to come and plenty more. First, the news with Sam Harris.
Very good evening to you. The top story tonight. Well, thousands of migrants are gathering along France's northern coast, preparing to cross the Channel as weather conditions are set to improve on Christmas Day. Exclusive GB News footage shows hundreds at camps near Dunkirk, with thousands more spread along a 50-mile stretch towards Calais and Boulogne. Smugglers are offering so-called Christmas specials for crossings, with UK and French authorities bracing for a possible surge over the next 5 days. Border Force says it is on a heightened alert as strong winds are set to ease overnight, allowing for more crossings. More than 35,000 migrants have now made the journey so far this year. That is 20% higher than last year's total. Sir Keir Starmer has come under fire today for planning to jet abroad over New Year after spending Christmas at Chequers with his family. Critics have slammed his travel habits, with over 170 hours spent in the air since July, while key domestic issues remain unresolved, they say. The Prime Minister's team won't reveal his destination for the new year, but insists he'll stay in charge rather than handing over to his deputy.